Alright, because the UFC decided to schedule two damn number cards in the week of each other, here comes another video, very late, very rushed, and I'm trying a different recording setup this time. Starting off with Vergara, Osborne. 9-2 Carlos CJ Vergara looks to build off a Contender Series win against 9-4 Jamaican sensation Osborne. 5-inch reach going to Osborne. Alright, so I got nothing to talk about with Vergara. He has a 42nd win in Dana White Contender Series, got the knockout power. Striking seems to be his strong suit outside the UFC, so expectation is to keep the fight on the feet. Osborne's a bit more mixed, I have a bit more on him. He's got the takedowns interspersed through his striking. He also has the knockout power and submission ability. With 4 UFC fights going 2-2, it's hard to kind of grab on how well his well-rounded game kind of works. I could see him using takedowns in this fight to great effect, but it seems a bit odd, like, picking this fight, because, like, Vergara could have a pretty good ground game. I can't tell outside the UFC. But going into Vegas favorites, Ode is the favorite, and I have to agree. His experience, more rounded game, give him the edge, and I think aside from a knockout, there's probably a pretty good chance he wins this fight. 6-1, Milic the Gun, not even going to try to pronounce that name, Baghdasaryan, fights 12-4, TJ the Truth Laramie. In this battle of horrible ring names, Laramie is 5 years younger, but Milic has 3 inches in height and 4 in reach. Milic is a striking heavy fighter, 5 of his wins coming by KO. In the UFC, he's been able to take the striking lead and hold it in most of his fights. His striking defense has been pretty good. That's all I can really gather from 2 full UFC fights. Laramie is definitely heavier in the grappling, at least in the UFC, and he seems a little sloppier in the striking. 7 of his wins are by TKO. I'm not sure how much of that is power and how much of that is just swarming his opponent with punches. It makes it a bit difficult to gauge somebody. This is another short one because the guy's got 2 UFC fights and 1 of those is from the Contender Series. But I like Milic in this fight. How good his striking has looked and how poor Laramie's striking defense has looked, it tilts the odds. The hard question is, can Milic defend the takedown? But I don't even know if that'll be a huge issue here. 6-2, Khmer goes after 13-6 Zhang, the Hunter, Allen. Once again, poor ring names here. 2-year age gap for Khmer and a 1-inch reach for Allen. Khmer is generally the striker in terms of fighting. 59% landed, 60% in his striking defense. He did win his Contender Series debut with a flying knee, but hasn't knocked anyone out since, and does seem to be struggling. One part seems to be the issue that comes with losing the striking lead, and another small one seems to be his takedown defense and ability to get off the ground. Kind of important in mixed martial arts. Allen, on the other hand, is heavy on the takedowns, averaging 1.94 across his 3 fights. His striking is where it falls apart a lot, with double absorbed to his landed. Obviously, we see grapplers that have that poor quality, but if they can keep it up, I see that, but it's just like, normally it's like not that bad. In this fight, Khmer is the favorite, and despite his struggling, I am going to agree. Allen's inability to not get hit, the feet are a very dangerous place to be. And what really else is there to say about when one fighter's on a 2-fight losing streak and the other has no wins? It makes this kind of difficult to pick apart. 17-13, Gaethje Violante is fighting 21-7, Chris Beast Boy Barnett. And now I have the Beastie Boy stuck in my head. But back on task, Violante is 4 inches taller and with a 1-inch reach advantage. So Violante seems to be at least a very streaky fighter, currently coming off 3 straight losses. He has a higher absorbed and landed, 5.48 to 4.39. He does have 10 knockouts on record, but his most recent one was in 2016. And in all honesty, he seems like a fairly one-dimensional fighter. Negligible takedown game. Barnett's got even less with 1 UFC fight where he got choked out by Ben Rothwell in the 2nd round. But on record, he does have 16 knockouts. Barnett is the favorite for some reason, and I'm going to disagree. I understand Violante is streaky, and Barnett might look like the better fighter outside of the UFC. And it's not even because he lost to Ben Rothwell. I just like the experience Violante has on this stage. 7-0, Ian the Future Gary looks to start his UFC career with a bang against the 9-5 Jordan Boame Williams with a 2-inch height reach going to Gary. So Gary is entirely a new blood to the UFC, but across his career outside, he's shown a lot of competent striking and knockout power. He does have 1 submission win, but I can't really garner anything from that. Jordan, on the other hand, is a striking heavy fighter with a rather poor record. His land and absorb are equal, and even with takedowns, nothing seems to be that truly effective. Another short one, but Gary is the favorite here. I'm going to agree. Main reasons that I like the strength of his striking, and there's not really a whole lot to go off of here. First, an apology for pronouncing these next two wrong. 11-2, Edmund the Golden Boy Shahabazan. I'm so sorry. Looks to rebound against the 10-3 Nasreddin Imavov, with Imavov being 3 years older, but taking an inch height and reach. Edmund has very strong striking. I mean that in just a legit physical strength category. Since he averages 3.46 per minute and absorbs 4.10, he's definitely willing to swing and bang, and lets power be the decider. Contrasting that, though, is his takedown game. It seems to be pretty strong. The stat is flawed by having 8-1 fight against Darren Stewart, but having that available in the slightest can really open options up for you. It makes people more cautious about just stepping in and swinging with you. Especially also with the fact that he has a threat of submission. It's a minor one, but it's still there. It's enough of a mental thing that could help you out. Imavov has the better striking statistics, 4.3 landed, 2.23 absorbed.
I'm sure both of them feel like they're having as much success as one another.
Certainly doesn't seem
because it's been a confusing fight too with the clash
of his game, but he likes to build off of it. But much of the same, it can open things up in the fight. Now, here Vegas has it close, and I can see why. And looking at everything at context, I like Imavov for this. The better striking and his more natural ability to mix it up, I think makes him a little bit more dangerous. 11-2, Phil Megatron Hawes looks to keep the streak going against Dana White Contender Series winner, 26-8 Chris Action Man Curtis. Hawes being 2 years younger, 2 inches taller, and having 2 more inches on reach. Hawes has about dead even striking percentages, but definitely has power in spades, racking up 2 KO wins in the UFC and 7 across his career. However, the most interesting part has been how with his last 2 fights, he's opened up with takedowns in order to get the win, which is something I like to see. It means that you're changing your game up instead of just committing to the knockout power. He's racked up 6 across his last 2 fights. Curtis is a definite striking heavy fighter with degrees of power. My big issue is that he only has a Dana White Contender Series win in his UFC terms, which doesn't let me understand a whole lot. Obviously, you're a competent fighter. You have to be to get there. But how do you stack up against somebody who's fought in the UFC longer or somebody who's had more UFC experience? I do think it's important to mention that his KO came in the 3rd, though, so he has a degree of endurance and ability to go the distance. Hawes is the definite favorite, and sadly, I'm going to have to agree. One fight in the Contender Series does not tell me a lot. But with how Hawes has changed his game in order to match opponents, being willing to do what it takes to win, I think it gives him the edge. 14-6, Al Raging Aquinta looks to sell a house to 27-12 Bobby King Green, with Aquinta being 1 year younger, but Green taking a 1-inch reach advantage. Aquinta is a striking heavy fighter, though with 4.44 absorbed per minute, he really has no striking defense. Part of that is age, but he certainly has some degree of toughness given the amount of punishment he's absorbed over his last 2 fights. He does have some sort of takedown game, but it hasn't been utilized much in the last 2 fights. Bobby Green has the better striking comparison, 5.45 landed, 3.55 absorbed. He also has taken a bit of a beating in the last few fights, so the toughness is still there, but the difference from Al is that his takedown game is more present here. Alright, favorite for this fair fight is narrowly Green, and I'm easily going to follow this. He's kept it a little closer across his last 2 fights, and adding in that his striking, defense, and takedown game are currently better than Aquinta's. I like his chances a little bit more in this fight. It'll be close, though. 3-1, Alex Pereira looks to start his UFC career with a win against 13-4 Andreas Spartan Nikadalis. Said that wrong, with Pereira taking a 4-inch height advantage. So Pereira has no UFC fights and 3 KO wins outside of this. 1 loss by decision. But he also has a kickboxing and combat sports career outside of this, which does speak to his striking ability to succeed for a long time in that sport, and also a combat sports familiarity. Michailidis is essentially the same, but he's much more striking heavy. He doesn't seem to all that defense focused, doesn't have a single takedown, but that also doesn't tell us much to use. Favors Pereira, and I have to agree. I like the career outside of the UFC. I like how well he's kind of transitioned looking at some of his other fights. and I just like him in this fight. Now, still not a whole lot of info to go off of here, but still. But now, 24-9, Frankie, the answer Edgar, looks to rebound against the 17-7 Marlon Chito Vera. Vera taking 2 years of age advantage and being 2 inches taller and having 2 more inches of reach. Now, Edgar is a fairly well-rounded fighter. Though his striking is a little close in terms of absorbed and landed, his takedown game is pretty successful. 2.38 average across his fights. He has endurance in spades and has been able to beat some decent talent in Pedro Munoz recently. Vera is, statistic-wise, a little worse all around compared to Edgar, but his knockout and finishing power are the main differentiator here. He did lose to Albo, but rebounded well against Davey Grant, so I don't quite know what to make of him here. I don't know whether he'll be kind of the gatekeeper for a bit before making the push, or if this will be the beginning of his push. Now, Vegas likes Vera, and I understand why. The younger dude, the dude who's been a little hotter, who's coming off. Tough opponent still, like Jose Aldo is not a joke. But I'm going to pick Edgar. I like the vet here. I like the takedown effectiveness more, and I like Edgar building up control through his takedowns. I think that gives him either a decision win, or he'll be able to pack up the ground and pound. 13-3, Shane Hurricane Burgos looks to get back on the winning streak against 16-3 Billy Quarantillo, with a 2-year age advantage to Burgos as long as a 5-inch reach. Burgos is a tough nut to crack. His strikes landed is incredibly high, with 7.29, but equally high is absorbed at 6.11. The differential isn't major, but the fact that both are so incredibly high is very interesting. It means these are fast-paced, hard-hitting fights. Also interesting is the fact that he has submission ability with 5 submission wins across his career and 1 in the UFC. Quarantillo has shades of Burgos with how high his striking total is at 7.08, has a much lower absorbed though at 4.33. His takedowns are also a bit more aggressive with takedowns in all but 1 of his wins. Burgos is the ever slight favorite, and I can see why, but I am going to go with Quarantillo here. Burgos has lost 2 straight, most recent to Edson Barboza in a crazy delayed knockout that is actually super interesting to watch. But additionally, he rarely initiates the takedowns. So unless Quarantillo pushes it there, the fight probably stays standing, and that's where I think that Quarantillo's striking defense picks up the slack of maybe being a little lower in terms of strikes landed. Now, 22-3, Justin the Highlight Gaethje takes on 22-6, Michael Iron Chandler. 3-year age gap and 3-inch height advantage all going to Gaethje. Gaethje needs little introduction, but you're getting it anyway. He's a definite striker, incredibly high-landed and absorbed. He has a tremendous amount of knockout ability, and additionally, he has cleaned up his striking to a more clinical style versus the straight swing and bang he had earlier in his career. There is also technically the fact he's a Division I wrestler. Not that it matters. He doesn't ever really seem to go for a takedown. He's very much live and die by the striking, nasty leg kicks, clean punches, crisp combos. Chandler is a bit more even keel, lower amount of absorbed and landed. At the same time, he actually has a difference between them. He does have a ground game involving takedowns, 41% accuracy on that, which is pretty good. He also has the ability to knock people out with very good timing. Has actually really good timing from what I've seen. And he has definite power there. So this likely turns into a slugfest. And Vegas likes Gaethje here, and because I'm a sucker for fandom, I agree with that. No knock against Chandler, who's a great fighter, and this is close. Chandler has the ground game, but 69% takedown defense and how clinical striking is, I like Gaethje in this odds. I think Gaethje, either way, this will be a great fight, so you're not going to go wrong watching it. On to the title fights. 10-4, Thug Rose Namajunas looks to keep the belt in the rematch against the 21-2 Weili Magnum Zhang, with Rose being 3 years younger and having a 2-inch reach advantage. Finally, in the title fights on this card, Rose is a pretty well-rounded fighter. Striking percentage is pretty close, 4.13, 3.99, but it's supported by consistent ground game and submission ability. Enough of a threat that you can't completely discount it and just focus on avoiding the striking. She's also proven the ability to finish her opponents and is actually coming off a win over Weili. Speaking of which, She has a bit more striking presence. 6.36 landed, 4.42 absorbed. Takedown game is pretty consistent, but her takedown defense is 100%. She controls when the fight goes down. Now, both fighters are in the minus here, which is annoying because it means I have no easy out for a title fight. But I'm going to go with Rose. I like her knockout ability. I like the consistency of what she does. And if a takedown doesn't go, I think Rose can turn it into something, which is what I think will come down to in this fight. But finally, we're at the main event. Usman Covington. The 19-1 Kamaru Christian Okoye Usman rematches the 16-2 Colby Chaos Covington with a 4-inch reach advantage going to Usman. And what else is there to say about Usman? Man's the number 1 pound for pound for a reason. Striking is gate, solid gap between landed and absorbed, a takedown game that is consistent beyond belief. Additionally, he has 100% takedown defense, meaning he controls where the fight goes. And the best thing about Usman, in my opinion, he fights more to win than he does for anything else. He understands how he is in a fight. If he's winning by points, he will not take the unnecessary risk. If he's winning in some other way, he won't take the unnecessary risk. He understands how to win his fights and the best way to win them. Covington is similar to Usman in the striking and the takedown game, 4.61 average across his career. And Covington is undoubtedly one tough SOB. Has the ability to finish an opponent if given the chance. I just think the big question for this fight is that you can look at both fighters and you have to go, wow, he looks really good. Wow, he looks really good. Will this be the same fight again? I just don't know. I don't know if Covington can shoot the takedown and get anything off it with Usman's takedown defense and ability. If Usman shoots the takedown, does that change anything? Can Covington play off his back? And Usman is the favorite, and let's be honest, I'm going to have to agree. The fight should be good, and that's from a really skills perspective even. I also think it could be close. The last fight was an amazing match of slugging, and I don't think anyone can deny that. But in the end, what this fight comes down to is execution. And Usman executes well. If Covington executes perfect, I think he has a chance. But Usman's going to be one hell of a tough person to beat. Well, that's UFC 268 in a nutshell. Probably got most of these predictions wrong, and I might have actually missed a few fighters because they update these cards super late in the week, and I write the script on like Sunday.